You wait, do we need to wait for one more commissioner?
We're good.
Trying.
We got quorum, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Don just stepped up when you were trying.
Yeah.
So this is controversial?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Not six.
Okay.
Sometimes he gets bogged down in the Ingles because he's coming from that area.
I heard about it yesterday.
Yeah, I didn't catch it till today.
Yeah. Well, I heard about the controversial. Somebody was
So
telling
it's
me
down there by
yesterday.
the Bacchus on the water?
Yes, I know. So
Name tag.
it's right here.
And these
I just got back from
But the issue is right here.
we went over Florida.
Buildings
Sounds like we're gonna
or
go.
building kayaks or something. Something to do with kayaks. I remember seeing it somewhere.
So this is not a residential.
No, so it's commercial. It's a commercial highway because it's on 90. You've got to have a 30.
Well, what is the purpose? What is the building for? What would it do? What would the boat be used for?
Kayaks.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
storage. Or,
Yeah.
okay.
They may work on kayaks. They may build on them right here. I remember seeing this here.
What's it called now? Bacchus on the bayou.
Yeah.
And
And,
you
they're,
keep coming
and the
down.
reason they're against it
This
is
is the service road.
because
So you can go back
Service
under the
road. Yes,
train
you've got to
bridge
have
or
a
take a
20-foot
hard
buffer
hook
here.
right and then reaching this neighborhood, Cherokee, Glen, Love Plains.
30 feet off the water.
this is water here.
20. Yep.
Yeah, I know that.
So this is the start of the service road where you either can go back under the bridge or
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can curve straight. So it's this hairpin. There's a ditch. I guess
Oh,
what
that's
they
me.
did was
That's you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't
Yeah.
know. Okay.
Yeah, that's,
Well, right.
no, that's me.
Well, there you go. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Just remind everybody to sign in and
Time we got. Almost time. I'll go in.
yeah, that's that clock, yeah, right.
I know one of them that was just trying to do
Did everybody get a chance to sign in?
Yeah, if a friend of you ever shows up, you know George is mine.
before it was Bacchus, remember they came in. Cantina.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
With all the trees.
Help everybody come.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, I know where you are exactly.
So it's
I usually do my own too, but I
I've got to run and get something else. We have a start.
All right, and I've got 5 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get this meeting started. If everybody if you have not signed in, please go ahead and do so. And then, so we'll go ahead and call to order the meeting of the Zoning and Adjustment Board, City of Ocean Springs, Tuesday, June 13th. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the May 9th meeting. Has everybody had a minute to look at those? Anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the May 9 minutes.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda is old business, and we have none, so we'll move on to new business, which is parcel ID number 60224010.035, requesting a 5-foot variance from the water body setback and a 5-foot variance from the northern property abutting residential property line for a proposed 15 by 48 building. And Wade, if you'll introduce the request.
Sure, thank you. Okay, could you go put this cursor on down a few more slides to this?
You want the
Keep it a little
drawing?
bit more. Yeah, there, okay, we can start off with that one. We see that we've got the property is highlighted there on the screen. It's at the intersection of Iola Road and the Beaver Boulevard Frontage Road. It's in the CH Regional Commercial Zoning District. So you see from that, it's really in a transitional situation with the backyards of houses that face east of Cherokee, facing it on across the street, and then also single-family residential zoning and dwellings up to the north of it. This is kind of the property's undeveloped right now. If you could go on to the next one that has the blow up. Yeah, keep going down. Cursor down. One more. Is there a way you can rotate that screen? I should have put it in a different way, but you can turn it 90 degrees. There it is, rotate. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Okay. That kind of just gets things a little oriented a little bit better. You can see that this property was created in 2022 through the approval of a lot split that was approved by the Planning Commission and then by the Board of Aldermen. You can also see from there that there's a property is split in two by a stream that flows into an arm of Old Fort Bayou. The larger, more buildable area is on the south side of it, while this one is the northern part is more restrictions on it. You can see due to the shown in green there, the 20-foot zoning buffer, that's required because the property to the north is zoned residential. In addition, there's a 30-foot water body buffer along the stream that runs through the property all the way to the bayou up to Iola. And again, that's a stream protection buffer that along both sides of the stream. In this case, what you can see what it does substantially reduce the buildable area of the area to the north of the stream, leaving the area on the south side a little bit larger. So what Mr. Troutman is requesting are variances from both of those the buffer areas. He's requesting a 5-foot setback, 5-foot waiver from the variance rather from the 30-foot water body area, and also a 5-foot encroachment into the residential buffer area. This purpose of that is to enable them to build a 15 by 48 foot building. And just for your information, that's a 16.6% variance from the water body one and 25% from the residential property buffer. Points out that the variances are due to the drainage easement along the stream that's provided to the city, and also if there are additional information that's included in his application. I think that pretty well sums up the important points of this. I can be glad to answer questions you might have, or if you want to discuss it with Mr. Troutman, our neighbors here also. But I guess, like I say, I'd be glad to answer any questions you have at this point. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Wade. I guess the first thing I'll go through is some of the findings. So I guess this was a part of a lot split in 2022. So at that time, UDC was in effect, correct? Okay, so the current UDC was in effect when this lot split.
Yeah, these buffers were in effect at that time.
All right, just wanted to make sure that was the case. Anybody else have any questions for Wade before I bring?
Just because it's hard to see with all the different layers, can you show us the split? Was it that proposed parcel?
Yeah, okay, yeah, you may not be able to. Tell you what, can you go back to the
B?
Previous?
It was AB.
Yeah, A and B. I think this previous one.
Now you can see it on that one if you scroll back down.
Yeah, actually,
so you can see that A and B.
A and B, that was
hard to
the
see.
Original parcel.
And all.
That was in existence, and it was split.
Hated upper left.
And just to make sure, show them
the whole thing.
Nick, show north.
This is A.
And north is straight up, right?
Correct. So this is A, and then this is B. So we're talking about A.
Thank you. Yep.
A, which is close to what?
And the purpose of the building is?
Well, it's zoned
use?
commercial, so Mr. Troutman could probably explain to you better what his plans are, but it's going to be maybe a small office for recreational education training.
Has there been any feedback from the fact that this is a wetlands and we have this 30-foot wide buffer? Anybody get feedback from the city on how this will affect runoff, drainage of property?
We would actually, if the way it would work would be that once it gets building plans for it, it would have to go through our design review process. At that time, there would be a drainage plan would be required, drainage calculations that would be reviewed by the city engineer and the project manager. We would look at it at that time. But at least at this point, no, there's not been any kind of
Feedback.
assessment on that. No.
All right. No other questions for Wade. If the applicant would like to come up, state your name, address for the record, and anything you want to add to what Wade has already said. So.
Cameron Choppin here. Thanks for taking us, guys. And yeah, so
Address, please. Oh, okay.
1160 Iola. We just think that the actual drainage easement has made the north part of the property like exceptionally narrow, and so I think that would be kind of a standard reason for a variance. Yeah, we want to build a proposed build of 15, 16 feet wide by 48 feet long, and so that's what we're asking for variance.
All right. Thank you.
I do have a question in your notes. You had said this was built without prior legal record of a drainage easement. Can you explain that?
When we did the survey, we never found any easements prior to the lot split of 2022, so there was no drainage easement prior to 2022, and we feel that because of the erosion that has been caused by the by the culvert under the road, that it's actually caused like now we have to obey the 30-foot water body setback because of that, which we granted the city an easement when we did the lot split in 2022. So we just feel that because of the drainage issue, it has caused the 30-foot setback and made the property exceptionally narrow on the northern part of the lot.
That easement wasn't there when you purchased this?
That's correct.
And that was a recommendation of the Public Works Department at that time when the parcels were created. I believe Public Works had been doing some maintenance prior to that on the ditch, but they never had an official easement allowing them to go in and clear it as needed. So in order to, of course, the easement is totally within the buffer zone, the water body buffer.
Anybody else any questions for Mr. Troutman? Or? No? All right, thank you. If something else comes up, we may bring you back up. All right. Anybody else to speak for this request on behalf of? All right. Anybody here to speak against this request? And if you would come up, say your name, address for the record. And I don't know if everybody plans on talking or a lot of people, but if you have a lot of the same points, if you could just say, I agree with the previous, then that'll help maybe speed things up a little bit.
Yeah,
So, not trying to cut anybody short, just.
Hi, my name is Lars Larson. I live at 1109 Iola. One of the closer houses to that. So my primary concern is why are we building a office in a residential area? I mean, you know the neighborhood. I grew up there. I was born and raised in that house. There's $1 million houses down that street. Most of these people live in a little office building at the front of our street. That's not doing anything for the property value. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
I agree.
Well, if you could state your name and address for the record and say I agree, please.
Hi, I'm Brianne Humphreys. I live at 1203 Hillcrest Drive. That's on the corner of Iola and Hillcrest. That home has been in my family for over 65 years. It's a residential neighborhood, and I don't see any room to have any commercial building in the entry to our old neighborhood.
Thank you.
My name's Patrick Johnson. I'm at 1202 Iola Road. There was a few things that we had when we were kind of looking at what was there. First thing and I live, I guess, 3 houses down from it. Most of the property in that Water Bay area is all pretty tidal. There's a lot of water movement in there. I think without a proper wetlands delineation survey and a mean high water survey, it's hard to determine what the setbacks would actually be for that area. And that's what I had to go through when I was doing the pier on my house, redoing my bulkhead, all of that area. The second part, going back to the old minutes when the lot split was originally done, we were trying to determine, I guess, what the minimum requirements were as y'all were working through it. I think at the time it was determined that there was a usable area of the lot and that the usable area of the lot would not be part of the lot split process, and that it would meet all of the minimum requirements as laid out within the zoning and the UDC. The hardship that is currently there is based on a self-created hardship, not something that was there from the ordinance and the UDC that's already there. And then the proposed setback of 10 feet is not consistent with other homes or the requirements of the zoning ordinance. And then the last part, and I think that's what Lars and Brianna touched to, the structure will not be consistent with the general character of the neighborhood. This is the main thoroughfare coming into our neighborhood where all of us are. And as part of a zone mixed-use commercial property, we have a lot of children there. I have 3 young boys that are on that property. I don't want the traffic coming through there from a commercial area that would be increasing that either. So.
Thank you.
I'm Carol Cooper. I live at 1204 Iola Road, and I agree with everything that Patrick said. We have these rules and these variances are erode the character of the neighborhood. They're there for a reason. I don't think we should make exceptions. It's just because it's a slippery slope.
Thank you. Did you get that? All right. Anyone else?
Randy Wrigley, 1310 Cove Avenue, 1 street over. One of the reasons the drainage is in that location is because that's the low point of the entire subdivision. It flows either through the culvert or across the road. It's your choice. Depends on how much rain you have. And it's always been that way since that subdivision is developed. And the reason this property has never been built on is because it's unbuildable, in my opinion. I do have a wetland delineation on the property, and the area that he's talking about building is 100% wetlands, according to this very well-known consultant in the area. To do what he wants to do, you have to get an individual permit from the Corps of Engineers with permission from Mississippi DEQ and Mississippi DMR. If you look at what is the wetland area, it is 100% wetlands. And if you look at the city ordinance, it says that you have to have a buffer for wetlands. And it's a 30-foot buffer from, it says right here, and I'm reading from the ordinance, buffers for protection of wetlands, water bodies, and conservation areas. It's 30 foot, sorry. Make a decision of giving areas buildable. In my opinion, it's not buildable. And if you look at this delineation, it's 100% wetlands. So at this point, how do you go forward and grant what he's asking for until you have visual permit in hand? I don't see how you do it. Some of the other things that are concerns, the structure is also supposed to be consistent with the general character of the neighborhood. Now, we've heard several things about what's going to be built on there. First, it was a house for the father for the son. Then it was a VRBO. Of course, you can't build a single-family house on the property because it's commercial. So the VRBO, I guess you could if you could make it work. But then if you do something commercial, how do you comply with
American Disabilities Act, because you have to have an elevation that's going to be probably 16 foot to the finished floor elevation. I'm not sure, but I think that's probably right. And so you're starting at about a 4 foot elevation. So you've got a highly elevated building that you have to comply with ADA with ramps. None of those ramps can go in a buffer area. So how do you make all that work on that little sliver of property that he wants to build a 15 foot wide structure that's totally not compatible with the neighborhood at all? The setbacks are not compatible, the width of the building's not compatible, and that's something that has to be considered here when you look at what's allowed. And I know that you're going to come back and you have a process to address all that, but if you start granting these setbacks, which he says he didn't need when he did the lot split, everything was fine. And now we're back in here asking for a variance from a residential side and from a body of water side that really shouldn't be allowed at this point. I think somebody just needs to say, we're going to wait on this or table this until he brings back in a permit from the Corps of Engineers that even allows him to build on the property. It's 100% tidal wetland. It doesn't take an expert to see that. You can go out there and see an alligator on most days. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Why is the building permit there?
My name is Amanda Kopp. I live at 1206 Hillcrest. I agree with everything that Randy said, Patrick said, Lars said, Brianne said, and Cheryl said.
Thank you.
I'm Stephanie Barthez. My husband Joey and I live at the vacant lot. Well, we don't live there yet. We're planning to build on the vacant lot between next door to Patrick's house and the Desport house. We just wanted to state that we agree with everything that's been said. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Melanie Bosarge. I live at 707 Vanville Boulevard. I adjoin the eastern part of the property. I also spoke with Sean Desport and Jessica Wallace when I was coming here. Both couldn't make it because of work obligations, and both wanted to say that they oppose this. And there's just one lot in between the proposed area and their house that's been there. All of their waterfront abuts together, so they're within this water buffer zone area. As far as adding to this, when they originally did the lot split, Cameron Troutman's father owned all of the property. They were doing the lot split so that he could deed Cameron part of the property to supposedly build a tiny house. It makes me feel like they're probably still going through with that because of the 15 by 48 building that they're putting there. So if the tiny house gets put there, it's just going to set like a precedence for that neighborhood, even though it'll originally be on commercial property. I mean, the property's commercial now. But when they did split it, they were asked if it was buildable, if they had enough room to do everything that they wanted to do, and they said yes. And they asked if they were willing to give the city the easement, that was, I think, a requirement for them to be able to do the lot split in the first place. And they said yes, they were going to give the easement. If they had not split the lot and they had kept it as one parcel, this wouldn't be a problem right now because they would have never had to have given the city the easement. And this is a little deceiving here because the lot split did include the part all along Iola and down, but the area that they're wanting to build on is a tiny, very distinct piece of property where the ditch is definitely next to it. I mean, it's the large part of the property is the ditch, and then the part that actually runs up to the service road, up to the 90 service road. But I just feel like it's being built as a commercial building, but it's really going to be that original tiny house that he wanted to deed to his son. And we just really don't need a precedence like that in all of Cherokee Glen with $1 million houses back there on that lot.
Thank you.
I'm Aaron Cobb. I live at 1206 Hillcrest with my wife. I'm looking at this sort of a devil's advocate. Okay, if this does get approved, it sounds like there's a lot of laws from organizations that are at the state level outside of this organization that need to be investigated. And so if it was to get approved here today, and we find out later that something a law, the wetlands law or whatever is actually a violation. What happens to what's already been done on that lot? I don't want to see vacant structures at the end of my street. So that's just where I'm at. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, anyone else?
I just want to add something to that. Do I need to walk up there?
Yeah, can you hear from Mary Carolyn okay?
I just remember when they originally asked to split that lot when I read the proposal, and I didn't go back and read it before this meeting, so I would just ask you to please go back and read it. It was my memory of what they were asking was to split it to give to him so him and his wife could build a house. That's not what they're asking to do at this point. They're asking to build an office. I don't think their intention was to ever build a house. I feel like there's a little bait and switch going on from the first meeting. So if you could go back and review those minutes, and y'all decide.
Thank you. Well, let me see if there's anybody else against.
Can I have one thing too? Okay. Originally, when the property was available, one neighbor to the north tried to buy the property. After doing the due diligence, backed out because the property was not buildable. Then I stepped in and I thought, well, I'll buy it because I don't want to build on it anyway. We'll just leave it natural. I might take that 40-foot that abuts to my property. It wouldn't need a driveway or anything. It would just extend my property a little further. And then I, would have just clear cut it, made it, not clear cut it. I would have just done the underbrush and I would have left it beautiful. So I was next in line, but they decided to go with the documents that the person before him did as far as the due diligence, the unbuildable, and they just decided that they would figure out a way to build on it. So, I think everyone has known all along, and they got it for, probably 10% of what probably 20% of what all the other lots in the area go for, and it's 1.4 acres, I think, and now we're discussing that little bitty part of 1.4 acres, but that's the part they picked right next to the neighborhood to build on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
There's a way to explain how the buffer works. If you have a wetland, it says here the wetland or the body of water boundary. So, could we get an explanation on that from the ordinance?
Wait, do you want to take that, or the intent of the buffer, and is this section about the 30-foot being measured from the wetland? Is that general, or is that in conservation district only? I'm trying to remember.
I think it's in general. I think it's for anyone. And of course, in this case, we at this point don't know where the wetland is.
Correct.
If there has been a delineation or not.
Mm-hmm.
Not privy to that if there is one. So the only thing we do have access to is the extent of the water body. So at this point, that's what we're looking at. If more information becomes apparent later on, well, then we'll take that into consideration at that time.
Yeah, and so best available data at the time is kind of what's used.
So the 30 foot is from the center of the
edge,
the water body?
from the edge. Mm-hmm. Right. Anybody else to speak against?
I just wanted to clarify, you're not sure there's a wetlands delineation on this property? Is that what you're...
I'm not correct. We haven't looked into it, but not been made aware of it.
Sure, yeah.
Right. And Mr. Chapman, if you want to come back up and address some of those, or...
I just want to say...
if you could come back up.
Yeah.
That's a little far from the
won't be able to take it on.
No, I just wanted to say, we were just applying for the variances, and so we included the proposed build. We're not, I don't think we were required to, apply with architectural plans of any kind. We're not planning on building an office space, actually. We're actually just going to build a house, a residential house, but short-term let it, and possibly put a space below it, since it does have to be elevated so high. I have a water sports business in town. I do, kayaking, paddleboarding, kite surfing, windsurfing, these kinds of things. Possibly just have a space below to do like classroom sessions. So it will not look like a commercial, building by any means. And like I said, we were just applying for the variances. We weren't talking about the proposed structure. We were just showing what would be possible if we were able to get those variances.
Thank you. And to, I guess, address some of the other things that were said, this is, it's zoned commercial highway. So it is, zoned for, I guess, the intended use. This is a permitted use. At this time, it's just as he stated, just to get the setbacks. Once it's kind of goes to design review, all commercial and multifamily goes through a design review process in which the city kind of reviews to make all the city standards. So that's why we're not looking at those things right now. That does happen and come later if it makes it past this step, or they end up moving the building to a new location on the site to where no setback is needed. So just wanted to clarify that for some of y'all in attendance. So, all right. Any further discussion?
Does the parking in a commercial area, does it have to be contiguous or anything? Does it have to be attached to the location of
the general parking does not have to be contiguous. Of course, there are requirements for accessible ADA parking spaces, and I don't know, I'm not that familiar with all the specifics of them, but they have to be contiguous, but they do have to be, I think, reasonably accessible from the parking spaces to the building. As far as general commercial, it should be, obviously it would be best to have it closed. There's not a specific requirement.
Any other questions, comments?
So back on the wetlands, the gentleman in the back has a wetlands report of some type. And sure.
No, I don't think so, because we don't know who prepared it, I don't think.
You all can accept it into the minutes.
Yeah.
We would have to be taken under advisement. They can give it to us, but it doesn't.
Yeah. Okay.
But I need a motion to accept it into the minutes.
Okay. So is that you making the motion to accept it?
It was me.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion that we accept the unspecified report. I don't know how to designate. The report provided by the gentleman, and to accept that into the record.
Okay. Motion, to have second?
I'll second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Entered into the minutes. All right. Any further discussion? One thing, I'll go back, and this is kind of, we're allowed to do our percentage of variance, provided the justifications that we have listed below, and those do not include a kind of self-imposed that was done with kind of this lot split. And I do believe in that southwest corner, Iowa and the service road, there is some upland area that, could potentially fit this site. I know it's shown as proposed parking. I don't know what the parking requirements may be. If it's, a VRBO, then not that much. So just, that's kind of what I wanted to say. And I don't know if there's any further discussion or if anybody'd like to make a motion. And remember, there are two items, so there's two variances to consider. So we can do one at a time or both.
Kind of, as a board, we're charged with looking at if there's any, like, topographical or other types of barriers or physical hardships on the property that would require some kind of request for a change.
Correct.
Not necessarily, is it buildable or...
Well, I think a lot of those. Well, I guess maybe you're saying buildable just from a
other height, elevation, wetlands, etc.
Mm-hmm. You want to take a stab?
It just feels like we're at the cart before the horse here a little bit. I don't know. Is that me?
No, we can try.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Maybe we should, this is a discussion. Table until some of this is resolved. It seems like
that's an option if you want to, look into something or have us look into something further. There's an option to table it to consider more additional information. Obviously, your choices are that.
Yeah, sure.
Recommend approval or recommend denial, and send it on to the Board of Aldermen for a decision.
You want time to review the additional information that came in would be a good idea.
That'd be my opinion.
In my opinion. Based on what we've heard.
That's a good idea.
So, all right. So we're looking for a motion.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
now, if the motion is to table, does there have to be a specific until A, B, and C, or until?
There should be something. One, it should be a specific time frame. Either to the next meeting or pending submittal of some required information or opportunity to verify some information. One of those three should be incorporated into your motion to table it, or defer it, actually.
all right, then I'll make a motion that we table this proposal and awaiting the results of verification of the Tidelands report that was submitted, whether to authenticate that, and review upon that
Criteria?
Yeah.
The wetlands
Help me
criteria,
here.
if it is wetlands.
Okay.
Is that close enough?
All right, so we have a motion to table, I guess, to the next meeting?
Sure.
Or just until, can we say
Well,
until?
we got to verify that.
The next meeting.
Till the next meeting. We'll go one meeting at a time.
Because you'll be able to have time to verify that report or
If
not.
it goes beyond that, we can report that to you and so that people can follow.
Okay. All right, we have a motion to table to the next meeting. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes to table to the next meeting. So this will be on the July, or, pending, we have time to review July, what's that, second Tuesday? 11th. So we will look at this again on July 11th. Well, let me kind of, wrap this up since, motion's been made, and I'll just kind of finish this. So, we've acted on that one. Next item on the agenda is audience request. Any additional audience request? Now would be a time to, I guess.
I was just curious if I need to get like a wetland survey, like prior to this meeting?
I was gonna ask Wade, besides if we find out the designation, is there something, an entity he should work with, provide a report?
Not next spot,
Now, I know, the problem, these things, you get a delineation, get a jurisdictional determination that takes longer than a month. So,
But look at what we have and determine the recommendation.
yeah.
We don't really know.
I mean, would the Corps of Engineers be, throw this out, I mean, I would start with the Corps of Engineers, it's kind of information they might have. That'd be that.
So if next month we come back and we say this was in fact a wetlands, you would then have the steps he would have to go through dealing with the proper entities.
Then we could
with
start,
theirs.
if it's determined that it is a wetland, then he would have to go through begin the process for getting that altered, doing the
So those
mitigation,
things,
whatever, or a determination that it, not for one reason or another.
those things would automatically come into place if this determination is a wetland. So we would just, I guess, need to get an answer, and the rest, it sounds like, will fall in place. Is that correct?
I think that's a good.
Yeah, it'll at least give us a route to work with there.
I just wonder, because of this kind of question mark that remains out there, would we be advised and notified again? Would this come on your agenda in the future?
If it goes beyond, right now, you can expect it to be on the July meeting, and if it goes beyond that, we'll resend the notices. So, we stand in practice.
Nick?
Yes, sir.
You could probably check with us, check with Dawn there, like 2 days prior to the July 11th meeting.
What is that date for the July meeting?
11th?
July 11th.
Or you can always send an email with an email address on your notification. The plan is to send it there, and one of us will respond and let you know the update. It's just the three of us, so we'll get back.
First of all, he can't accomplish what he's got to accomplish to satisfy anything in 30 days. He's going to have to submit for a permit.
And that's what I was saying. Yeah.
DMR, and it's got to go through the process before he will ever know that he can build anything on that property. And they have final say on if it is a wetland or if it's not a wetland. In the end, a consultant can do the report just like I've given you as part of the record here tonight. But the final say comes to the Corps of Engineers. This is an individual permit. It's not going to be something that happens like that. It's tidal wetland, and it's going to take a year. That's just the way the process works. I do it all the time. It's a very painful process that always takes longer than you think. 30 days won't cover anything. You can't even get an opinion in 30 days.
All right, thank you. Any additional audience requests? Yes, sir.
I tend to side with them. I don't know how long it'll take, and so that's why we didn't try to get the survey before we applied for the variance, because we thought it was just about a variance, not about the wetlands. We thought the wetlands meeting possibly was going to be before we began construction on the property, and so that's where we kind of stand.
Well, yeah, we'll do it, just to the next meeting, and if it takes longer, then we'll, address it at that time.
We'll have a report back to y'all at the next meeting.
Okay. All right. No other audience requests. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All right. All those in favor? Meeting adjourned. Dawn, second. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
And then Carolyn, on the approval of minutes, you were out. Shannon first. Don't say. Okay.
I need to be smarter than I am.
Just let me know if you figure that out, because I do too.
Buy some brains. Carrots and brains.
Knows me? Oh boy. Good or bad? Bernie Delir? Yeah, I know Bernie. Yeah, he does. He's
classmates.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He's been working. He's done several jobs.
He kind of went on helping somebody with his brain.
He does good work.
I haven't used it.
Oh, no, I recommend. Yeah, no, we,
Gentlemen,
I've got some more.
opposing all this.
And him, no. No, I don't.
No, he's been, no,
That's what I got.
yeah, no, he's got some stuff to do at our
Just
house.
curious.
And we're waiting on him too, so, he's
Kind of a
in
strange thing.
Yeah, he couldn't do it right off. That's true.
All right. Well,
Oh, what's
something else, isn't it?
That's interesting.
You got something new? Let's see that one.
So, there's no record of wetlands. That's all right, isn't it? Or?
In this place?